Hey guys and girls, how are you doing today? Peter here, and I wanted to do a video on one technique for learning while reading. So you have probably heard about repeating paragraphs after you have read them, which basically means reading the paragraph and then trying to repeat as best as you can the information that you just read. And that's, I think, kind of a common technique, and it's really good. And I have used it for for a very long time, basically, and I think I've benefited a lot from it. But recently, I wanted to do an experiment of how much effort really you need for that, and how much more time you need to spend if you'd like to do that. So I chose two topics. One which is quite unfamiliar for me, which is from the biology field, and one which is more familiar to me, which is from a business lecture. So basically, the two things were about 10 pages long or so. I chose like that length of lecture, and I wanted to see how much time it takes me to read that without repeating the paragraphs and with repeating the paragraphs. And for that, you might be interested to find out that it takes you different time to repeat a paragraph of a topic that you are familiar with and of one that you are not so familiar with. So for the biology part, which I really don't know much about that, and it was on cell interactions, so completely unaware of that topic. So it took me about 15 minutes to go through those 10 pages, and they also have pictures there, so it's not like 10 straight pages of text, right? But it took me about 15 minutes without repeating the paragraphs, and when I tried to repeat the paragraphs, I felt like I was struggling quite a bit to recall terms and concepts. Like I was able to get the main idea of the paragraph, but I couldn't repeat like all the terms that were in it. So basically, with repeating the paragraphs in my head and trying to recall them, it took me about 18-19 minutes or so. So about 20% on top of the original time. And the reason for that is really because I was able to recall just a couple of words and the basic idea of the paragraph. And that's it. Basically, the other things I had forgotten already and couldn't recall. And when I did the same with the business lecture, which is something I am way more familiar with, so for reading the 10 pages, it took me again in the 15-16 minutes margin. For again, they are like pages with pictures and so on. So again, not exactly the same amount of text, but it took me about the same time to read it. And when I tried to read it with repeating the paragraphs, it took me about 22-3 minutes, so about 50% on top. And the reason for that is because I am way more familiar with that material, and basically after reading a paragraph, I can recall a lot of the words from it, let's say. So I get the basic concept, I'm kind of familiar with that, and then I know the terminology better as well, so I can recall that to some extent too. So it takes me a bit more time, but I feel knowledgeable of the topic. So for an unfamiliar topic and for a familiar topic, it can take you, let's say, between 20 and 50% more time if you want to do that. And of course, that time depends on other variances as well. But so that's to some extent personal. It's to some extent how much detail you want to recall the paragraph. If you want to go word for word, which is pretty difficult, or if you simply want to recall the concept and what's it about. But regardless, I wouldn't say that you want to be doing this all the time, but more often than not, I would say that it's pretty beneficial if you tried to do that while learning. And there are three reasons for that, in my opinion. So, firstly, it's an immediate self-test. So, immediately after reading something, you're already expected to be examined on it, or you're expected to know it. So, you immediately self-test and see if you understand it. And the second reason is you don't lose your sense of direction. So, you're going through a lecture or through like 50 pages of material, and it's pretty easy to miss the point of why is this being said, or how does this relate to the other information, and so on. So if you repeat the paragraph in your head, you're more like making sense for yourself of why this is there, right? And the third reason is to keep your focus up. So when you start reading, it's pretty common at some point to lose your focus and to start mind wandering and think of other things. So when you do that, you're basically training your mind to be more in the moment and more aware and mindful of what you're reading. So those are three pretty good reasons, and I would say they are worth the bit of extra time you spend on repeating the paragraph in your head. So in summary, those are the reasons that I very much recommend this technique. And if you've watched the video up to this point, there are a couple of things I want you to do. So give it a like. If you think someone else will benefit from this information, share the video and also leave a comment with your experience on this topic. And thanks for watching. See you next time.